Okay, I looked at them. All right, done. Yes, that's the level of captive audience you have, is somebody who is required to look at it and then say something intelligent sounding about their look. Is it really anything else? I mean, there are good people of goodwill who go on study sections and review panels. I think many people. But it's not like they're having fun. It's not like they're captive in the sense of they're enjoying it. I know it's getting wonky out there with grants, grant funding. It's a tough environment, but I want to talk about how you can do things to try to survive in that tough environment. And before I get going on that, before I talk about one thing that you can do, which is your reviewer's journey and understanding the journey that you're taking your reader on in a grant proposal, I want to talk about the bigger picture. First, I want to actually say thank you for being here, and I really appreciate it if you can like, subscribe, and even share the videos with your friends, colleagues, to help spread the word. I'm here to help out and do what I can, and I know it's tough out there. On this grant writing thing, let's talk about this tough environment first and then talk about that reviewer's journey. So in this really tough environment, what do you do? It's so unpredictable. Like tomorrow, well, right now, the government, as I'm recording this, the government is shut down here in the US. And actually, I know somebody in France, and it's shut down there for a different reason right now. It's a crazy time, right? And it's so unpredictable. And you might say, there's really nothing I can do, and like throw up your hands. But I'm here to tell you that even though it looks dire and frankly is kind of dire, it's not hopeless. It's not hopeless because there are things that work in any environment. So I remember back in the 2008 financial crisis, the so-called Great Recession, that was happening right after I got tenure at UNC Chapel Hill. And that was a period of a lot of turmoil, a lot of concern, a lot of fear, a lot of worry. And at least at that time, after we got through the initial sort of panic phase of this, of like, oh no, what's going to happen? There was a lot of money that was then given to science. Now I know that's not happening right now, but there were other things that were happening. So one of the things during that period, especially before there were some big floods of money in for like the American Reinvestment and Recovery Act, there was this narrowing of the field in the sense of people that were kind of on the edge and unwilling to really develop the skills that they needed to work in that environment, gave up, left, went away, went into the corner office and just decided I'm not going to even try the grant funding anymore. Because honestly, before the 2008 crash, even I remember in 2006 and 2007, the funding was getting really tight. We were in the refractory period after, here in the United States, there was a budget doubling of the NIH in the 1990s, in the Clinton era. And then after that, it was the Bush era, and it was kind of the opposite. It was like a sort of winnowing down. So it had already gotten really difficult and really tight by 2007. Not as difficult as now, by any means, but pretty difficult. And so there was already this sort of shrinking pool and people needing to develop better skills. And so that's one of the things that I saw happen, is those who had really invested in developing these skills. By invested, I mean spent time, spent mental energy, spent like their focus on really developing the fundamentals of their ability to communicate really well and convey their science and make sure that the science that they're doing is relevant to what funders want at that time, that paid off then. But the more important point is it paid off massively over time. Because like when in 2009, when it was announced from this American Reinvestment and Recovery Act that there was this special funding mechanism, there were quite a few different ones, but one of them was called the Grand Opportunities Award. And that's something that was super, there were only a small number of those given out. And I was able to get one for our team. And I was able to get one because I had been working for years after struggling with grants early in my career in the very early 2000s to turning it around 2004 and really understanding at that point after a bunch of rejections and learning what it really took and then further honing those skills. It's not like I learned that and then I was like, okay, I'm done, because it was such a profound difference. I'm like, I need to keep honing and refining this skill. So I kept refining it over those years. So when this opportunity in 2009 came along, I was ready. I had really worked on these skills because I had realized how fundamental they were. And that's how we brought in that funding. And that's the thing about this time, is that administrations come and go, political trends come and go. I'm not saying that even if things change here, that everything will go back to the way it was or be normal or easy. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that trends come and go. And this present thing that we're experiencing won't last forever. And the question is, when it ends, not if it ends, when it ends, where are you positioning yourself? And are you ready to really take advantage of any opportunity that comes along? Or even opportunities, there are still opportunities, even in the current environment, to get funding for your research. They're more difficult, they're more unpredictable, but they're still there. And I have clients who still get funding for their research. So then the question is, are you going to let panic really shut you down and say it's hopeless, it was always a lottery, and now it's even become more of a lottery? Or do you do the other thing and say, I can't control all the crazy out there. It's impossible. I mean, none of us can, right? We can't control it. We can push back here and there from time to time, but we can't control it. But we can control our own skills. This is where lasting value is. You know, economies go up and down. Science funding goes up and down. Those things are volatile and variable. What's not volatile is when we develop skills, when we develop real knowledge. So with that, I want to dive into one skill that is just so foundational, and I still see people just struggle with it so much. And I have an idea of why. So it is, again, understanding the journey of the reviewer. When a reviewer or reader, it could be a program officer too, or whoever else, when they pick up your grant proposal and start reading, what is the journey that they're taking? And for a lot of writers, a lot of people who want funding and think, okay, well, I have to write a proposal, and the journey that I need to take them on is a journey through the facts. Basically, I need to pile in all those facts there, and that will be the journey. That, like, I give them enough facts and I give them enough data, and that will be enough, right? That will win the day. Now, if the recent presidential election in the US hasn't disabused you that facts always win the day, I don't know what will, but facts do not always win the day, neither in elections nor in grant proposals. They don't. Facts don't win the day. I'm sorry. I mean, facts in a scientific context are helpful if you are totally ungrounded and don't marshal some facts on your side. Sure, you're not going to succeed because most scientists do care about facts. So you might think that my metaphor with elections is incorrect, but you would be wrong, at least based on my experience working with hundreds of clients at universities all over the world. And I'm sorry, I know it's rude to say you would be wrong. But really, like, I've got to get you disabused, or I shouldn't talk about what I'm going to do to you. That's not how I like to do things. I would like to present that there is an alternative view, that facts are really the thing that wins the day. And it is really understanding the reviewer's journey, which facts are involved in, but it's not just a dumping of facts. So the analogy that I like is I've gone on multiple tours in my life, like bus tours and things like that. I'm not a huge fan because a lot of those tours remind me of the really boring scientific lectures. I could just, like, if I went to a conference and there were a bunch of very fact-laden lectures in a row, I would tune out and I would just go back to my room and like work on my work rather than, I just couldn't sit through it. I don't have that patience. So a lot of tours would remind me of that same thing. Here's, so-and-so did this in this building, and so did that in that building, and so did that in that building, and whatever, and then this happened, and then that happened. And occasionally, a tour guide would stand out. I remember one in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It was on a tour bus, and I don't even know why I decided to go on this tour. I'm not sure, but I think it was because it was around the time that the TV show Breaking Bad was on, and they were going to like show different sites where Breaking Bad had been filmed, and I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. So they did that, and there were multiple things that I remember from that tour because the tour guide was a really good storyteller. And I don't remember how this fits in, but I remember, going in, actually stopping and dropping into this house that was now some kind of public museum or something, but it had been owned by a very wealthy lady. And I just remembered her story of being a total recluse, but sending kids out to gather the news of the day, because, there wasn't internet at the time, gather, the gossip and the news and bring it back to her, and how she just never left the house. She lived by herself, and it just really left this impression how there was a story told. And again, that story had facts, but it was not just wanton facts about this woman. It was a very limited number of relevant facts that made that an interesting story. And I mean, that was literally like 20 years ago or something, and I still remember the basics of it. I don't remember a lot of the details, but I remember the basics of that story. If, on the other hand, there had just been a litany of facts about every place we visited and no story, there's no way I could be recounting much of anything unless there was some fact that was really relevant to me and interesting to me. And notice when I say interesting to me, I'm talking about an emotion. I'm not talking about just a dry fact. I'm talking about my reaction to a fact that is memorable. And you've got to understand that's the same thing. Your reviewers are people. We are, until AI reviews and grades our grants, there's an emotion involved. It is whether you make it memorable and interesting or not, whether you take them on a journey. Because I like the analogy again of the tour guide who is so focused on just getting you enough water and enough snacks, but they don't pay any attention at all to their presentation. And so you're just kind of like really bored. Well, the water and the snacks don't usually, like, you could have bought those for $1, well, these days $10, but you could have bought them for a few dollars back, 10 or 20 years ago. And it doesn't make up for something that's really boring. The other thing related to this is it's not a captive audience. I know you think as a reviewer, or as a writer, many writers think this. I, again, shouldn't say what you think, but many writers think, oh, I've got a captive audience here. They are on this study section or on this review panel. They're being told they have to review this, And so they're going to read it and they're going to take this seriously. They will be a captive audience. And I'm telling you, that's a mistake to think that. Yes, they're captive in the sense that, sure, they do have to look at it. And from looking at it, they do have to provide some feedback if they're going to do their duty. But what do we mean by look at it? Look at it could mean lots of different things for lots of different people. I'm kind of, let's see, what have I got here? I've got some glasses. I would need these if I was looking at a proposal. Okay, I looked at them. All right, done. Yes, that's the level of captive audience you have, is somebody who is required to look at it and then say something intelligent sounding about their look. Is it really anything else? I mean, there are good people of goodwill who go on study sections and review panels. I think many people. But it's not like they're having fun. It's not like they're captive in the sense of they're enjoying it. Like for most people who review grants that I talk to, and I work with a lot of people on different study sections, they're like, I've got this grant review coming up. It's not a thing they're looking forward to. So they'll do what they can to take it seriously. I mean, again, they take their job seriously, but is that the same as they're engaged, they're interested, they're excited, that they remember and they want to go into a study section and actually advocate for your science because they're excited? And the answer is no. You have to do the job to get them engaged and excited. And that is about, one of the big elements of that is about paying attention to their journey. From the moment that they start reading, let's take the example of a specific aims page for NIH. From the moment they start reading, paying attention to, getting their interest. So you have to, as a writer, pay attention to, I'm not just putting a bunch of facts that say, oh, this is a really, really important problem, and you got to pay attention, and therefore we're going to do this and this and this technical thing. No. Like, unless you get really lucky, you can, once in a while, but not that often. If you get really lucky, they might know about that technical thing that you immediately dived into and started giving them all the facts and data and techniques about. They might, if you're really lucky. But normally, most reviewers won't know that thing, and they won't be excited about that thing. And so then they'll be already in a snooze fest saying, okay, here's another one in the stack I've got to read. I got to look at. And within 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, they've already decided, I'm done with this. Like, this doesn't make sense. It's too much information. There's no cohesive thing for me to grab onto here. And I'm done. There's this other proposal here that really engaged me, and it's a really interesting story, and I would love to know the answer. I'm going to go in and advocate for this one because I can only advocate out of the 10 proposals I look at, 8 or 10 or whatever, I can only advocate really for one because that's how the funding rates are. So it's not going to be this one that I'm just like falling asleep for. It's going to be this one that the person really took the time and the effort to take me on an interesting journey and tell me why this science is important now and what this technique means and how things fit together. They take me on a journey. It's so important. And this, again, is a fundamental skill that also applies to your presentations, to your manuscripts, to anything else that you put out for your scientific community. It's not just grant proposals. It's the skill of understanding where your audience is at when they start, when you're at the start of your talk, which these days is usually, bored, anxious, whatever, concerned about what's going on in the world, and blah, blah, blah. Where their starting point is, and the journey that from that starting point that you want to take them on to enlighten them, to entertain them, to get them interested, to get them to be a supporter of your science, because that's essential too in talks if you're going to do a talk or a poster or anything else. It's not just grant proposals. So that's what I mean by foundational skills. Like when you work on this kind of skill, like taking the reviewer or your reader or the audience on a journey, a good journey, a memorable journey, then you get, it's effective always, everywhere, all of the time. It's a foundational thing. It doesn't matter whether the environment is up and down and sideways. It's still important. Even if you decided to leave research and academia, which, a lot of people are considering doing, I don't know, and some people have actually done. If you go into an industry job, these are still foundational skills. You will get much further if you have these skills than if you don't have these skills. So please don't let the current sort of panic and anxiety of this moment, of this time, keep you from really developing skills like this one. It's foundational. It works at any point in history, whether the economy is up or down or wherever it is. So I hope that helps you. This is Dr. Morgan Giddings for SciFoundry, and I really appreciate your time here. And again, if you haven't already done so, a like, a subscribe could really help promote our work here. And I'll be back with more videos. I'll see you later.